It also is always getting worse. The 49er injury report. Nick Wagoner, our buddy ESPN, jumping in, presumably from out east. Where are you, Nick, right now as you get ready for the East Coast two-step here?
Well, guys, I don't mean to brag, but I am in the Fairfield Inn in Lewisburg, West Virginia right now, looking out the window at a beautiful view of a highway of some sort. Yeah. So
wow.
I know. I don't want to brag, but you asked the question, and that's the answer.
I mean, listen, as an interviewer, you got to know. You ask the question, you get the answer, and now all of us are just wildly jealous. Unbelievable. It's Nick Wagoner from Paradise, ladies and gentlemen. Nick, here's my question. I think we all get the 49ers are one of the best defenses in football. But are they still because of the injuries?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are still, right, as we sit here right now, but so much that's going to depend on things that we don't have the answer to, specifically Nick Bosa's situation. And I know a lot of people were under the impression that because in the second half of that game, after he came out with that tight groin the other day, that he was kind of laughing and seen smiling on the bench and stuff, and that maybe it was more of a precautionary thing. But, Kyle Shanahan made it clear yesterday that if they'd have had practice yesterday, he wouldn't have been able to go. And these groin things, we saw George Kittle have one right before the season. It cost him a couple of weeks. So if it's short term, that's something that they can survive. Will they still be as dominant? No. But if it's long term, that's something that is going to be a significant problem for them because, in my opinion, guys, Nick Bosa is the most important player on the team. And I don't say that lightly, given that guys like Trent Williams and some of these other players that they have that are so valuable to them. But losing Emmanuel Mosley is no small thing either. He was playing very well. I think one of the things that gets really underrated, the coverage has been good, of course, but they have the two best tackling corners in the league that I've seen between Mosley and Charvarius Ward, and that really helps them in the run defense and some of the things they do in limiting yards after the catch and things like that when they do give up completion. So still should be a very good unit, even sans Bosa and Mosley, but if they lose Bosa for a long period of time, then that's going to require a serious reevaluation of that.
And sad because he was trending toward being Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL, and if he misses a few games, that would obviously hurt that campaign. Defensively, how do they adjust without Mosley? Do they go to more base defense, or do they have just another player come in that nickel package to replace him?
Yeah, there's a lot of options. I think Jason Verrett is ultimately going to be the choice there to replace him on the outside. I don't think that's going to happen this week. That's just kind of my early read on it. Kyle Shanahan has made it very clear they don't want to rush Jason Verrett back, and he didn't get any training camp time, so it's not like a Jimmy Ward situation where Jimmy Ward at least had been in camp and then got hurt and then came back and was in shape. So he's still kind of working his way back into playing shape. And then so what you're looking at now is they could do a couple of things. They could have multiple moving parts. If they wanted to, they could put Deommodore Lenoir, move him outside from the nickel role that he's had, and then go back with Samuel Womack III as the nickel. And that would theoretically get your three best corners on the field because that's at least how they felt at the beginning of the season when Womack was the starter at the nickel. So that's one option. You could go back to Ambry Thomas on the outside. He got the playing time last year toward the end of the season and seemed to improve as the season went on. But then I think took a little bit of a step back in training camp, and I think that's how the Niners viewed it as well. And so he wasn't really in the mix much and has been kind of their last option. And if you really wanted to go with the more veteran option, you could call up Dante Johnson too. But I think he probably will come up. I don't necessarily think he's going to start, of course, but those are kind of the options that are on the table. I don't really know at this point, without having seen a practice this week, which way they might be leaning there. But I think the first option makes the most sense because it's the most recent in terms of these are the three guys that you seem to feel the best about right now on the active roster.
Nick, take us to the relationship that we've talked so much about this year. Jimmy Garoppolo, Kyle Shanahan, and the very strange journey they've been on. It seemed that Jimmy was indicating here over the last week that it is really on an upswing. Not that it was in some sort of awful spot, but that everybody has kind of navigated the drama of the first few weeks, and now they feel like they're on the same page. What can you add to this? How would you speak to where those two currently sit?
Yeah, I mean, I think the relationship right now
Apparently, we may have lost Nick for a moment.
And is not in paradise. He is now in the vortex.
Much
So
like,
see you later.
many wagon
We'll get
rides
Nick.
I had as a kid where you get jolted out of the wagon, you hit a bump, all of a sudden the wagon's over.
Well, see, I noticed stuff like this because you were talking just last week about the famous Barry Bonds home run where Dave Fleming's call just all of a sudden wasn't there at the perfect time.
It was like that.
I noticed that. I mean, when we're talking injuries with Nick Wagner, it's like, yeah, no problem. Everything's completely clear. The second we get to some sort of dramatic relationship, click, gone. Yeah, okay. Now are you back, Nick? Are you with us? You said you were in paradise. Apparently, you're out in the ocean.
Cell phone reception in West Virginia. I'm not sure.
Oh, my gosh. Anyway, you were telling us how Kyle and Jimmy hate each other. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think the relationship is back to normal as much as it can be. And again, I think you had an early situation this season where there was kind of short-term quarterback controversy where you guys were going to have to be on the radio every day talking about, is it time to go to Jimmy? Is Trey struggling? All that kind of stuff. That went off the table when Trey Lance got hurt. But the repercussion of that was now you have a long-term quarterback controversy again. We're kind of still in that mode for what's going to happen after the season. But I think that is easy enough to put aside as we sit here today and have the conversation of, okay, Jimmy is the guy. There's no questions about that. He's going to be the guy for this year, for at least for as long as he can stay healthy, if he can do that this season. And so I think it makes it a little bit easier when everyone's got that understanding that there's no questions that have to be asked from a situation of what is your opinion on this or how do you evaluate this. Instead, it's very cut and dry, and I think that's made it a lot easier for everybody involved.
We'll get your thoughts on the blow-by-blow of every Brock Purdy snap coming up momentarily. But the running back situation, Tevin Coleman, what a nice surprise. How surprised is the team that he's able to hit the ground running literally?
Yeah, I think that this is probably kind of what they expected, and it's part of why you see Tevin Coleman get elevated from the practice squad and then play over Marlon Mack, who actually already got elevated from the practice squad to the active roster on a full-time basis, because Tevin Coleman hasn't even gotten that promotion yet, although I wouldn't be surprised if that comes here pretty soon. But the fact that he's been in the system, and even when he was gone, when he was with the Jets last year, he was still in the system, so to speak, because it was Mike LaFleur in New York. And so you had kind of the obvious transition there that made it very easy for him. So I think they expected that. What I don't think anybody expected necessarily was him to, beat a corner on a contested catch down the sidelines for a big gain on a pass the other day. We hadn't really seen that from Tevin Coleman in the past. But the good thing for them is it seems like he's kind of carving out a role as maybe a pass-catching option for them, which is a good thing because Jeff Wilson can do that, but he also needs a breather here and there. And before the other day, I didn't think it was very clear who his backup option was going to be.
Look, Nick, he looked great, but you know what a lot of fans do because we're always wondering about the guy who didn't make the play. Like when Tevin Coleman and Marlon Mack and everybody is jumping Jordan Mason. What's going on there? There was some excitement, we thought, around this guy. What is it that's holding him back from getting a shot?
I think it's as simple as they really want to see him take steps forward when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. They want to feel confident that when they put him in a game, it's not just telegraphing to the defense that you're going to hand the ball off to him, that he can block, that he can do blitz pickup, that he can catch passes out of the backfield. The things that you do when you don't have the ball in your hands are the things that are the hardest to adjust to for any running back in the league, but it particularly is for this system because Kyle Shanahan asks a lot of his running backs, maybe more so than some other teams do. And so I think that is the area that they want to see Jordan Mason evolve the most. He also contributes on special teams, so that's something they don't want to take him off of if they can put somebody else in there and not worry about getting him hurt as a running back and then have to replace him that way. But the big thing is get better without the ball in your hands, blitz pickups, catching passes, running routes, that type of stuff that can get him onto the field. And that comes with time, and I think for him, it's just going to be a matter of getting those reps and getting that opportunity in practice, continue working that stuff.
George Kittle able to get discovered in the passing game this past week, but Brandon Aiyuk yet to really break out. Are you starting to sense any frustration with any of the receivers vis-a-vis the muted passing attack?
Yeah, I thought the other day there was a couple of moments where Aiyuk seemed visibly frustrated on the field. there was a throw early in that game that Jimmy threw to Debo, and I think it nearly got intercepted over the middle, but it looked like he had Aiyuk deep if he wanted him, and he didn't cut it loose. And so I don't know that there's frustration because they're winning at least, and Brandon Aiyuk did get the ball a little bit. I think that they spread the ball around a little bit more the other day than they had in some of the previous games. And so I think his time is still going to come. He is producing when he's getting opportunities, but I don't think you're going to find much frustration as long as they're winning. That stuff's more likely to pop up if they're losing. But also, every receiver wants the ball. We know that. Keyshawn Johnson made it clear famously so many years ago, and I think that's all part of it too. But I do think that as this season goes on, you're probably going to see Aiyuk get more involved. I also think he was the guy who was most likely to benefit from the switch from Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance. And so now that we go back the other way, maybe that kind of evens it out a little bit too.
Nick Wagoner, ESPN, with us here on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Okay, factor in the injuries. Long trip. They've done really well with this Greenbrier thing in the past. But we got a trap game this week, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Falcons I was actually just watching them a little bit before I came on here with you guys. They're kind of frisky. I'm not ready to say that this is a legitimate playoff contender, but Arthur Smith seems like he has a good plan for them every week. Marcus Mariota is mostly taking care of the ball, which is a big thing for them. And they've got some players. I don't love their weapons. Their offensive line has some questions, but they're playing pretty hard. And so, yeah, you could say it's a trap game. I will say, though, if we're talking historically, and you can't call it a trap game because this year it's the Chiefs, but the Niners are 8-1 when they do this. So they come out east and they stay somewhere, and then they play another game. And they're 8-1 in those games. They could go to 9-1 if they beat Atlanta, but they're 1-3 when they come back from those games. And so it's always been kind of when they get back from the East Coast trip that they have struggled, and they could very easily be 0-4 because that one win was that game in 2019 against Pittsburgh where they had like 5 turnovers and found a way to win it late. So this year it's the Chiefs, so I don't think we can call that a trap game necessarily, but I think that's one that they're going to have to certainly watch out for anyway. But when you factor in the East Coast factor also, it's going to make it a little tougher than it already was.
Nick, great stuff as always, and enjoy paradise, okay?
Thanks, guys. Take care.